Hello everyone, I'm back again for another update. Here to talk more about the climate, man-made global warming, and how it is not really true. We're being scammed on this whole concept. In front of me, I got a current view of the Pacific Ocean, because the Pacific Ocean is important to the weather for North America. What the Pacific Ocean is doing influences our weather here in North America. Where the weather systems are setting up, where the MJO is, where the upper air flows are going. I've seen increasing amount of posts, talking about the snow drought going on in the east, how other areas are getting exceptionally mild weather, such as Ontario, Canada, lately has been having a record warm streak of temperatures. Saw a post yesterday on Twitter about how Burlington, Vermont, first 10 days of February have seen a bare ground, first time in their record keeping since 1885. They have had the first 10 days of February. No snow on the ground, never happened before in recorded records in Burlington, Vermont. And a lot of people are trying to tie this all to global warming. That is it. The world is we're all going to die soon. This is getting out of hand. For one, is global warming causing this snow drought in the eastern U.S., the warm weather in Ontario and southeastern Canada? Is it even causing the blizzard that just hit Nova Scotia? They're blaming global warming on everything. All the anomalies occurring are being blamed on man-made global warming. I emphasize man-made because the planet can naturally get warmer if solar activity, as I've said before, increases. It can warm the planet, or if we get an eruption like Tonga, which injects a lot of water vapor into the upper atmosphere, that can warm the planet for a couple of years as well. And that's my biggest explanation as to why the last couple of years have been seemingly warmer. It has nothing to do with man-made carbon dioxide. Actually, man as a whole contributes percentage-wise very little carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. It's a very small percentage. Most of the carbon dioxide is there naturally. It's increasing because the oceans are letting out this carbon dioxide because it's a rebound effect from the ice age. The oceans did get warmer. They're still releasing carbon dioxide from all this into the atmosphere, and that's where most of the increase is coming from. The oceans, it's not really coming from man. But I'm looking at the Pacific right now. We know that Alaska recently has gotten record-breaking snow, cold weather. That has eased up a little bit. And Alaska is up near the top. You can see now there's a ridge developing right here, a high pressure area off British Columbia, Canada. So that is starting to feed some warmer air up into Alaska now. But yet, look at this to the west, you've got a huge trough going down all the way to northeast of Hawaii. There's Hawaii. And this is a cold pocket of air out in the Pacific, going way, way south in latitude. The rest of the Pacific looks pretty cold and stormy all through this area. This is what I was talking about in the last video about all that cold weather in Alaska last couple of weeks ago. What happened was it got, instead of coming down into North America, it got flung westward and then dumped out into the North Pacific, where nobody lives, out through this region. This is all very cold air occupying this whole area north of this front that you can see. There is a bit of a high pressure area sitting over Hawaii. The reason why I'm talking about the Pacific is because this is what sets us up for the weather patterns in the future. And I talked about in my last video as well. This is a flow that has persisted all last winter and most of this winter so far, and still persists even now. You see this band of clouds. Watch how it's moving in this direction. This is all air being pulled by this subtropical jet stream from the equator up into the Gulf of Mexico. And the reason why the east has gotten colder is because now this flow has been shunted to the south. It's not coming up this way anymore. It's still there, though. It's still there, and so the warmth is going to come back as long as this stays in place. You get another favorable setup with another high pressure off the southeast coast. It's going to move that back up into the central U.S. to Ontario. This is why the eastern North America has been so warm. You got this flow coming from off of Baja that has persisted almost this whole winter, persisted all last winter as well. Now we're going to look at the MJO. At least we could see part of it on this image. I'll have to go to a different image to see the rest of what the rest of the MJO is doing. First, I'm going to show you here. This is some naturally occurring convection off of Central America. You can see these green areas there. See some more clouds through here. This is a naturally occurring convection along the intertropical convergence zone. And this would be in the colder region for the MJO. A convection here would create a colder pattern for North America in winter. But we can see there's not much of it going on. Well, and there really isn't anything here either to the southeast of Hawaii. You need convection here if you want a sustained cold pattern in the U.S. You need to have convection in this region. There's very little going on. What is not much. But now let's move over here. We do see some going on in the phase 7 zone, and that could be part of the reason why we managed to finally get a nor'easter today. But if you look further to the west, let's move this a little bit. You can see down there is New Zealand, where the finger pointing is. That's New Zealand. Australia is here, just off the map. Look at all these reds occurring in this region. This is the phase 6 region of the MJO. And look at all this convection here. It's dominating the whole intertropical convergence zone, meaning that's where the MJO is. If you look closely, notice how dark the colors are in this area. Notice all the outflow. You see these lines rising up like steam out of where this convection is occurring. These are energy waves in the atmosphere being caused because they're manipulating the MJO to stay in this phase so that North America stays warm. Now, how can the weather here influence the weather there? Well, I feel that this here, in part, is what's causing this flow I showed you earlier from the equator. I have to go down in the image. I'll go up in the image to show you. That's what's causing this. What's going on down here. Look at this whole area. Notice if you look, it looks like steam rising up from this whole area. It's because they're manipulating the convection. There's an excessive amount of convection in this area being created. All that excess energy is radiating out in the form of clouds. Compare that to what's going on here, where this convection is natural. Look at the difference. Look at all the reds here. You should not be getting all these reds. I'm looking at an infrared image, cloud top infrared image. There's a lot of infrared energy in this area. So I feel that the manipulation is some form of infrared energy they're firing at these areas to enhance the convection, to influence the jet stream to do this and create a flow from the equator that persists almost all winter, affects the eastern U.S. for most of the winter, if not all. Can't do it perfectly. It won't always be the whole entire winter. You may get a couple of breaks. But the theme for the whole last 2 winters has been this flow from the equator, originating here and heading up into the eastern U.S. If you look closely, you could see the effect I've been talking about. They look like explosions going on. You can see the outflow, and to have an outflow going this far away means there's an excessive amount of energy being in these convection cells. There's so much outflow that it's almost reaching all the way many hundreds of miles away, all the way to here. You compare that to here where there's natural convection going on. Look at the difference. Normally, without interference, this is the colors that you'd see over here. Even if the MJO was here, they wouldn't be all these dark reds and black colors occurring. So my prediction is winter, stick a fork in it. And if you're in the eastern U.S., eastern North America, we're not going to have much more of a winter. The groundhog overall is going to be right, in spite of the snowstorm they're getting in New York City right now. In spite of the fact it may get cold for chilly for the next week or two, normally chilly, it's not going to be Arctic. It's going to go away, and this, which is very warm in the eastern U.S., is going to return. Spring peepers are already out here, and it's not even the middle of February yet. We are turning colder here even, but as long as this persists, we cannot get a cold pattern in the eastern U.S. to stay for very long. It is going to persist because they're manipulating it to persist. They're firing energy at this region. It's pretty obvious. You don't see these colors anywhere else on this image. You don't see anything going on in the areas that would promise colder weather for the U.S. or North America in general. This is what's dominating right now. You see here. Now, I'm going to go to a different image here where I could get a better view of what's going on with the MJO. Unfortunately, the National Weather Service won't give me the images for the rest of the planet. I have to go to a different site. I'm going to go to my flight radar where it shows the precipitation going on worldwide to figure out what's going on here. Just gotta. So we're going to look at the rest of the MJO here. And see what's going on. Right now I'm in the eastern US. So I'm going to zoom this out and move it. This cooperates. Here it goes. First of all, I gotta get it signed in. But what I've been talking about, like I say, people have been more and more getting convinced that man-made global warming is taking over the planet, that it's never going to snow again in many areas of North America, that Burlington, Vermont is going to have no snow on the ground more and more frequently in February, for example. And this is just going to keep going on. And for some reason this won't let me log in all of a sudden. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to this image. Okay, I finally got it. So we're going to move over to the rest of the MJO region here and see what's going on currently. You can see this is what I showed you earlier. This is the Pacific Ocean, Solomon Islands here. There's a lot of convection going on. This is the phase 5 zone, which again is a warm zone north of Australia, all kinds of convection. And the phase 4 zone has some as well, not as much. We move to the west. There is some convection going on here, which is balancing out what's going on further east. These are colder phases here with convection. And again, this could be another reason why this nor'easter today got under the radar, because you do have some convection here, which would favor cold in the east. That's kind of somewhat canceling out what's going on over here. The MJO isn't like it's in phase 6. That's it. Cut and dry always. It depends on where the convection is. Since you got convection going on in other areas, it kind of dilutes what's going on here to some extent. It's not as dominant as it would be otherwise. So you could get the pattern to switch, and this here could dominate for a period of time, the weather pattern. This could alter the jet stream to a colder pattern. But what they are doing for manipulation is they are constantly firing energy at these areas that are favoring warmth, so that even if the MJO tries to move to another phase, the effects of it are going to be mitigated, diluted, and instead of getting a cold outbreak in North America, it's just going to go to normal, maybe slightly colder than normal for a while. Then, as soon as that convection fades in the colder area, since they're constantly firing energy here in this region, this is going to dominate again. The warmth always returns. Are they going to get away with this forever? No, they're not. The planet only has so much heat in its budget to work with. You need heat to create convection. You need heat from the ocean. And eventually that heat's going to run out. Now we go to the north here. Look at the flow pattern here. This is Siberia up in here. This is Japan. I talked a couple videos ago about this is Kamchatka, the tip of Kamchatka in Russia. Notice the flow pattern in the North Pacific. Notice how the flow pattern comes down. You got a low pressure here. This is what they're doing. All the cold air from Siberia, instead of coming across the pole, going into Canada and North America, is being poured out over the North Pacific, where it gets modified. The time it reaches North America, it's modified so much it's not even noticeable. Are they going to get away with this forever? No, because just like the heat budget, the North Pacific is going to get significantly cooled. It's going to backfire on them in years to come. As they're dumping all this Arctic air out into the North Pacific, it's going to cool that ocean. It's going to affect the weather patterns in North America. Summers are going to get significantly cooler, especially in the Pacific Northwest and West Coast, which has been starting to happen recently. And there's only so much heat in the Earth's budget to work with. Now let's go to solar cycle. See what solar cycle 25 is doing. I go to spaceweather.com and currently there is 153 sunspots currently. It has bounced back up, and it's kind of like it's fluctuating between 150, then it drops, comes back up, kind of sputtering. We get 1 week where it's active, another week where it isn't. And the cosmic ray count has come back down because of recent solar flares. It's down in the 57, so it's around -5 to -6. Now that this here is the normal line, it's down around -5, maybe a bit below now because it's dropped due to recent solar storms. But as I've said, in perspective, it's still nowhere near what it has been in the past. In the 20th century, we were regularly going -10 in each max. Now we're barely making it to -5. Solar storms in general are way down over what it's been in the past. That ties in with what I've talked about with 2007 being a turning point where the sun had gone into a different mode of operation, where there's a lot less solar storms and the cycles. It means less hurricanes, it means a cooling of the climate in general, and 2007, as we know, up until then, there was a natural warming going on, mainly because of these cycles here being very active, these last 3 cycles. But then we hit 2007, and notice how high the cosmic ray count went. That reversed the warming and reversed the trend. Hurricanes started to go down. The global temperature went down below average in 2007, first time in a long time. And that's when the lying started, I believe, of the temperature records of the climate, because it was no longer going where they wanted it to go to promote their agenda of man-made global warming. The last couple of years have been warmer, but only because the Tonga eruption, just like Pinatubo cooled the planet during a solar max in 92, which was right here. You can see how active the sun was back then. It mitigated that warmth a little bit for a couple of years. This was the opposite. Tonga occurred here in the cycle, mitigated the cooling caused by this. So are they going to continue getting away with manipulating the jet stream? No, they're not. Maybe in the next year or two, but it's eventually going to wear off. They're already, the phase 4 zone is, I think, almost worn out. They worked on that all last year. Eventually, the heat energy is going to be gone. This is why I say hurricanes in the next few years are going to go the way of the dinosaur, especially if we go into another deep minimum in the next few years of the sun. We're not going to see many hurricanes. Even if they try to force them to form, they're going to run out of steam even on that, probably within 2 or 3 years. So that's going to be it with this video. I hope you found this information interesting, informative. I have a lifetime of studying the weather, climate under my belt, and I know what I'm talking about, even though I never graduated college or got a degree in it. My son has gotten a degree but can't find a job in the field, unfortunately. Has not been able to. But you don't need a degree to learn and teach yourself about something to where you thoroughly know enough about it to talk about it and share it. The sun and the climate are very linked. 20th century, we enjoyed a very benign overall climate because the sun was very predictable during this whole period. Look at how even these cycles are. Look at how active the sun was. The lower these lines go in the chart, the more active the sun is. But you see the trend. You get into the 21st century, you can see how high, how much area in the graph that cosmic rays are elevated, which cools the climate When you look back here, you compare it into the 20th century, you can see there's a marked difference. There is a connection. They're only going to get away so long with manipulating this jet stream. Man cannot control the climate, never will be able to. In times past, the climate was much warmer than today because the sun was more active than today, even more active than the 20th century, as a matter of fact, during long periods of time. The sun has very long-term cycles which are not fully understood because we have a limited record of activity under our belts. A lot of things that are still not fully understood. So that is going to be it for this video. I'll be back soon. Another update.